thanks for tuning in. Today I'll be showing you how to string a Wilson Pro Staff RF97. It's a 16 by 19 string pattern. The same method can be applied for the regular Pro Staff, just that the RF, the feather version, is just a bit heavier than the other ones. So here I have the latest version 13 already strung earlier, showing you side by side with the unstrung version 11 from 2016. This customer pretty much wants me to replicate the exact same setup as before, with multi-filament strings in the mains and a polyester allopower rough and the crosses. Just as a disclosure, I'm not sponsored by any of these brands or paid to make this video. I bought everything with my own money from Racket Depot UK, which I will list below in case you're interested. So now, this racket belongs to a fellow who doesn't hit with a lot of topspin and doesn't break strings often. So, this setup with the soft string in the main is fine with him. So I wouldn't recommend this if you're using like a Babolat or any spin friendly rackets, because the soft string in the main will break a lot sooner. So majority of customers that I deal with that want a hybrid, I usually put a polyester in the main and then a soft synthetic guide or multi-filament in the crosses for durability purposes. So as I start here, I actually highlighted the holes that I'm supposed to skip. I use a silver Sharpie to color the grommets, just so you can kind of see on the video here. Also, I already pre-counted the amount of strings that I need for my mains and crosses. So starting the mains, I use a variation of the Yasuki method. I first pull 2 strings at once, and then clamp one side completely with a starting clamp and a base clamp. And then I go on the other side and I start doing 1 or 2 so that my base clamps don't kind of bunch up in the middle and get in the way. I use this method just because it's simple and it keeps the tensions consistent. Compared to back in the days, I used to use a clipper mate with flying clamps. And I noticed that the first main or 2, usually it's a tiny bit looser than the rest. It's not a huge issue for most people, but for some guys that are very sensitive, they might complain about that. So this racket has a 16 by 19 pattern, which means there will be 16 mains. So you will be filling 8 holes on each side of the racket from the center. So if you're doing the one-piece string job, you would have to pre-count it. But because I'm doing 2 pieces, I don't need to worry about that. I just pull the strings symmetrically, and it should be fine. The way I learned it is to never go over 3 strings on each side. Just to prevent having a equal increment. Avoids warping the racket. For the weaving part, I will fast forward this a little bit because it's very repetitive. I think once you get it going, it's very simple. But eventually, once you reach the end, or your 8th string on each side, you pretty much find a tie-off hole and you stick it through it for the final finishing knot. Certain rackets will have more than 1 options. For example, this Pro Staff, there's 2 spots where you can tie off, but some other ones they force you to tie off at a specific hole, and you have no other choice. So the knot that I tend to use is the Parnell knot, just because it's very easy for me to do and it's not too messy. There's no right or wrong knot, as long as, in my opinion, as long as it's not loose or doesn't break, then that's fine by me. So when you're doing the crosses, there are two ways of doing it. The first simple method is here. I'm going to show you in this picture. It's very straightforward. You just find an anchor string, use a starting knot, and then pull your first cross, and then you clamp it down and you keep going. Second method involves with a starting clamp. So where you, instead of tying it off, you use your starting clamp that secures it for you, and then you keep going, and then somewhere towards the end or somewhere in between, you come back to it and you tie a normal finishing knot instead of a big bulky knot. That's the whole purpose of this, to avoid a big bulky knot. And certain rackets like Onyx, they require you to do this. So yeah. Technically, a Parnell knot is a finishing knot, not meant to be used as a starting knot, because sometimes if the grommet hole is too big or there's a big gap, the knot might slip through entirely. But in certain situations with a natural cow gut, where it's very delicate, Parnell knot is acceptable as a starting knot, because sometimes the string will break if you loop and bend too many times. A long time ago, when I was doing natural gut, I actually snapped it while doing a starting knot. So then I changed it to a. Thankfully, there was enough string that to redo it, and I used this Parnell knot, and it worked out fine. Just because the starting knot you have to wrap it around 3 times and then pull it back. It really bends the string at weird angles, and sometimes the string just cannot hold it. So with the crosses, it's very simple. You pretty much just alternate over and under for each row or each string. You can kind of know it. You can kind of see it immediately if you did it wrong. Ideally, you start doing the crosses from the top or the racket head, and you work your way to the throat. This is an old rule a lot of people go by. I tend to stick this rule for my customers just for the formality. I have done the crosses from throat to head on my own Wilson rackets before. I never had any problems. If you think about it, in my opinion, based on stats, carbon is 5 times lighter than steel, but it's 10 times stronger. So most modern rackets that I've dealt with never had this issue with starting from the throat, right? But yeah, for when I'm doing for other people, I just stick to the old rule just for the sake of argument. I'm not going to chime in on this debate. There's a lot of people talking about on Tennis Warehouse and etc. But at the end of the day, this is a service that I do, and whatever they request, I will do it, because they're the one paying for it. Majority of the customers don't really care which way you do, but I do warn them, especially if they have an old racket, with cracks or damages, so that just to let them know that I don't want to be held liable if the racket breaks. Thankfully that I haven't broke anything, and hopefully I never get into that situation. So with the crosses, once you get it going, it's fairly straightforward. As you go from the head to the throat, you eventually reach the end, and then you pretty much find the final tie-off hole. And for this one, because I tied off the mains on the 8th hole, I'm left with the other option, which is the 6-hole to tie up my crosses. As you can see in the video, there's not a lot of space here, so I decided to do a Wilson Pro knot here instead of a Parnell, just because it's slightly more compact and easier to do, especially when you're in a situation like this where you don't have too much room. You know, that's why it's better to know more than just to know a few knots to do, instead of relying completely on one knot. Because each knot, they all work, but each have their own benefits and drawbacks. And there you have it, a fully strung Wilson Pro Staff 97 RF autograph. Just on a side note, I did a little comparison with V11 and V12 version, V13. I mean, the newer version seems a little bit more. No, the V11 seems to be a bit more headlight than the newer ones. You can kind of feel it by swinging it. And also, I opened up the trap door here. You can see that the carbon mold, it's now a hexagonal shape. I'm sure it won't really affect the feel of the racket, but yeah, both of these rackets weigh about the same, off by 1 or 2 grams. But it's just that the V13 is a bit more head heavy. So yeah, that's Wilson's QA for you. You know, not every racket is exactly the same. You just have to hope for the one that comes out with the specs that you want. So yeah, that concludes this video. If you have any questions, feel free to make a comment below or message me in privately. You know, and if there's any other racket you want me to do, I will try to make one once spring comes and I start getting more and more rackets to do. Usually, based on popularity, I get a lot of Pro Staffs, you know, Babolat Pure Arrows, Pure Drives, and Wilson Blades, and here and there. So yeah, if you guys want to see more videos, let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching and have a great day.